Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Sunday, June 28th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Today, we're looking at another really good sword and sandal movie that included a ton of Ray Harryhausen animation effects, and this one is called The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. It's from 1973. It is his third from last film. It'll be followed by Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, which we'll check out and review 5:30 today, and then tomorrow 9:30 a.m. we'll look at this last film, Clash of the Titans. But this one's got some really cool stuff, a pretty good story, but some inexplicable things as well, which, we'll bring up as we go. And, well, let's dive right in. Everything is set there? Yeah, there we go. All right. So, there's the title screen. In this one, no assistant producer or associate producer credit added to this creator's special visual effects. However, he is right up there with Schneer now on the full producer credit. So that's a nice thing for him. Now, there's some odd things here early on with the ships, because we see this one ship, and then apparently we zoom in on it, and it's Sinbad's ship, but it's got these kind of sails. It still has the blue pennants up top. We go back here, we get the blue pennants, but I don't know if the sails are the same, if they're furled, if they're unfurled, if they're, I don't know, maybe that's red, maybe that's striped. I don't know. It just seemed a little odd to me that the continuity would be a little off. However, up in the sky, right away, within a couple of minutes of the opening, a flying creature that's obviously an animated Harryhausen creature, and it's flying around. They introduce Sinbad. They spot the creature. They take a shot at it with an arrow, and it drops this chunk of metal onto Sinbad's deck, which is interesting that it happens like that right there. He picks it up, and he has a vision right away of a woman with a eye tattoo on the palm of her hand. The rest of his men look on, bewildered at why he's so flabbergasted. But then down comes the thing, and we see it as a homunculus, which they name later, but we know, if we're gamers, what it is. It tries to attack him and steal back the metal object, and he gets another vision, this time of what appears to be some sort of wizard. This is part of a nightmare he has later while he's wearing the metal thing now around his neck. They call it a tablet later, so we'll use that terminology. It's a little strange. It's more like a piece of an amulet, really. Nevertheless, in his dream, he has this weird vision of this wizard, and then a storm besets the ship. They see a figure, or actually he sees a figure on the shore. His men don't see this, and it flashes some signal to him. He is compelled to dive in and swim to shore, where he meets Cora, who we find out is considered the Black Prince. He is both a capable swordsman as well as a wizard. And Cora, seeing the piece of the tablet being worn by Sinbad, has his buddy Ahmed sneak up behind and steal his sword that he had poked into the ground there, and threatens him with his own blade, give me the piece of the tablet, and we'll just let bygones be bygones. However, Sinbad scares the horse, punches out Ahmed, grabs Ahmed's horse, and effects an escape and goes riding off toward a town that's nearby. When he finally gets to that town, he rides in through the gate. Cora, apparently unwelcome, has a bunch of soldiers coming at him, but he casts a spell to close the gate. So this Prince Cora, Black Prince Cora, is apparently a pretty decent wizard. We've seen a number of spells just in the first 5-10 minutes of this movie being cast. So as examples of movies you could lift stuff from for RPG gaming, particularly D&D games, we're already seeing all sorts of stuff. We've got the homunculus, we've got the promise of the amulet, we've got the spells being cast, and then he meets up with Ahmed and says, yeah, I closed the gate right on their faces, but he's got that amulet, so we got to figure out a way to get it. I lost my homunculus, so I'm going to have to use that homunculus, or rather he hasn't lost his homunculus, he's going to have to use his homunculus to spy on them some more and figure out what's going on, because Cora believes, that Sinbad, now in the city of this vizier who is a rival of Cora's, is going to talk to the vizier, and the two of them will get into cahoots and do something with this tablet, of which we're not completely aware what's going on with it just yet. Oddly enough, we find out right away that via these wrinkles that that magic ages you in this particular story or world. It's an interesting effect. DM tip: if you want to limit magic in your world, have any time you cast it have a sort of a balanced result. Low-level spell does a little bit of damage to you. Higher level spell actually ages you. Does something like that. I should note this is Tom Baker. It is Tom Baker in 1973, which makes it Tom Baker. Let's see, Tom Baker just prior to Doctor Who. Don't know if this had any influence on him getting that. Don't forget, we saw playing the role of Blind Phineas, the second Doctor in Jason and the Argonauts yesterday, Patrick Troughton, and that, if I'm not mistaken, was Patrick Troughton post-Doctor Who. So maybe there's something else to be said for Harryhausen films sequencing from one thing to another. In other words, when they're casting Doctor Who, they say, hey, well, we had a Doctor Who played in a Harryhausen movie. Here's another guy in a Harryhausen movie who would make a good Doctor. Let's pick him up. Of course, Tom Baker was doing a lot of things back then, just most famous for his Doctor Who portrayal, probably. Nevertheless, the vizier, who we're going to get to pretty quick here, there he is, sitting astride a horse. Next to him, being played by Douglas Wilmer. And Douglas Wilmer, by the way, was also in Jason and the Argonauts, playing King Peleus. So there's a sort of a stable of actors that seem to revolve around Harryhausen films, because these are, 10 years apart. So in some cases, sometimes 4 or 5 years apart, and they're doing other things, but they gravitate back or get cast again in Harryhausen films, which is an interesting thing. So he meets up with the vizier, and the vizier shows him around, wants to take him down into this dungeon, show him two secrets. Let's not let our minds wander there. The first is that there's this wall painting that, or this wall depiction, series of images that he's not sure what it is. He explains that the entire dungeon was engulfed in a fireball cast by Black Prince Cura, who, so we know of yet another powerful spell that this Cura is capable of casting. He explains also that his entire face, he became a burn victim because of this fireball, but it obscured some of the images. He's not sure what it means. He then further says the second secret is in this little box over here, and he opens it up and reveals he's got even more of another tablet. He says it's fitted together with the piece that Sinbad has, revealing that it's a part of a whole, and then unbeknownst to them, of course, nearby is the homunculus spying, so we know that Cura is hearing and seeing everything that's happening in this room. They discover by holding it in front of a light, they can cast the shadow up on the images, which appears to be a map. So it's a chart to a place. So they have information. They know they need to get to this island now. Of course, Cora has that information as well, but he hasn't actually, he doesn't actually have the chart himself. He doesn't have the pieces. It'll be tough for him to put it all together. But at least he has that information. So they kill that homunculus, and it harms. Meanwhile, back on his ship, his men are getting rowdy. They give us that real quick. He puts two and two together and pulls out a map and pulls out some paper and draws the map, so he has that information. Then he captures the homunculus and kills it. It, of course, does harm when killed to its master, Cora, so he takes another hit, a bit more damage. Hey, Alexfire, how you doing there? Perhaps a few magic rings on Prince Cora's hand. Yeah, sure. You could say that those rings have some magical properties. Certainly, doesn't actually show up in the movie as anything being magical, but he's pretty powerful. So maybe there's some spell storing there, protection. Yeah, there you go, protection and such. And two minds, one thought. Lexfire, welcome to the chat. So Sinbad goes on to get ready for the adventure, and he's going around to the merchants in the bazaar getting supplies and goods and whatnot, and runs across one merchant who says, "Hey, got to do me a favor. I will pay you a bunch of money to take my wastrel son on your next adventure. He needs to be not just hanging around town getting drunk all the time just because I'm rich." And of course, Sinbad at first refuses, but then discovers that the merchant has a servant who has a tattoo of an eye on her hand, the same eye that he saw in his vision earlier. So he makes a deal. Well, let me have your servant, and I will take your son with me as well. And it's a bargain that is struck. So now he has two more adventuring companions, because once they're on ship and they set sail, they're off to sea. Of course, Cora, following, pays for his own ship. It says keep an eye on the harbor. When Sinbad comes out, follow that ship. There he goes. Yep, follow along. Sinbad, meanwhile, goes down in the cabin where Mariana has a knife hidden behind her back, as if she's going to now not want to be going off to sea. But he says, "Hey, you're free. You can do what you want, but give me the knife." So eventually she's like, appreciates the fact that she's no longer beholden to anybody and is free, and then decides why not go along anyway. Gives him the knife. Late at night, they spy that they're being followed by Cora or pursued, and our young wastrel is on watch duty when Cora apparently animates the figurehead from Sinbad's ship. It kills one of his crew and then manages to bust into the cabin and grab the chart and then jump overboard. Of course, they're fighting the figurehead with swords and with fire, which is harming Cora. But the figurehead manages to dive overboard and gets away from Sinbad, and Cora now has a copy of the chart, so he knows where they're going and how to get there. Meanwhile, he also pours this liquid out of this huge vat, which he says has mandrake root and some other things, and of course we know mandrake root is going to become some sort of creature while he's fashioning another homunculus. So damage to his body be damned. It's an all or nothing thing for him now. He's got to in for a penny, in for a pound at this point, and he needs eyes and ears on Sinbad and company to make sure that he doesn't lose this race to find this island and get to a well where there is an oracle so they can discover more about where is eventually something that Sinbad still doesn't know about. So they get to this island, and there are all sorts of signs of a former civilization, and they go ashore. It's a daunting sort of environment with ancient signs of civilization, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them are the landing party. And now we know what our adventurers are. We've got Sinbad, his first mate, as we've discovered earlier, the archer who shot at the homunculus earlier, the wastrel's son, the freedwoman, the vizier, and a couple of other crewmen. Yes, they're probably red shirts. They spot a figure in a black cloak off in the distance, so they know there's some inhabitants on the island. And they are being watched by the homunculus, so we know that Cora knows which way to go when he arrives, and he does, onto the island. They find what they deem is a temple, and they go within, and it's kind of a rough interior, right? They obviously have stone stairway that's pretty well built, but everything else seems kind of natural, cavernous. More stairs down, and there's this well down below, and there's that black cloaked figure again, who the vizier says that is the keeper of the oracle. If we give an offering or make it plain what we're all about, that we're seeking more knowledge, we should get her to be able to bring forth the oracle. Let us know. There's some cool effects when she passes her hands over the well. Up comes the oracle. He gives us a riddle about the Fountain of Destiny, which he gives some information on. You got to go north. He says you'll find the rest of the tablet there, and then you'll find also the Fountain of Destiny, and this is what you're seeking. It does a number of things. He's a little vague on what those are. Nevertheless, Cora's caught up. He's heard everything because his homunculus was inside, and now he blows up the temple entrance. Well, that will slow down Sinbad and company and allow Cora and Ahmed to get ahead of them in the search for the Fountain of Destiny. Nevertheless, they find a way to shoot an arrow up through a opening up in the ceiling of the caverns, which is like a sort of a well. Um, they figure out how to secure a rope, and then they climb up, and the homunculus flies around and attacks Sinbad, but the wastrel boy is coming into his own at this point because he takes a bow and kills the homunculus, which of course harms Cora. And then we get a little flash over to Cora at that point. And he's clutching at his heart when the second homunculus dies. So he's been going through the magic pretty strong here, right? Dead is the homunculus. Well, Sinbad manages to climb out, and of course everybody else follows. Meanwhile, Cora runs into some locals, some wearing masks, and they have spears, and these masks, by the way, are pretty cool. There's a special credit in the opening for someone who created these masks. So these were specifically designed. Look at this one. Looks like it has an elephant trunk, right? And this one is a mustache. Anyway, they're all over the place. They're different cool designs. They take Cora's sword, an Ahmed's sword, and his little box of potions, like the potions he used to create the bomb that exploded the entrance to the temple, and they take him off to their, I don't know what to call it, lair, another temple. It's yet another temple, really. Bring him inside and show him Kali, their goddess. And here's where some of the confusion comes in. There seems to be, and maybe it's just fair to say that they worship more than one god. Because something happens later, which we'll get into, which suggests that they have yet another god. But they revere this, who is articulated by Cora as their living god, Kali. Well, it looks like they're going to be sacrificed to Kali, but he has this potion hidden in his sleeve, which he pulls out, throws at Kali, smash, and animates Kali. Well, this impresses the hell out of the locals, and they are now enthralled with Cora. He feels free to just go ahead and dig through all of the treasures that are laying around. He's looking for that last piece of the tablet. In comes Sinbad and company. So Cora, of course, arms Kali right away. You know what? Hands her one sword, and then 5 other swords come sprouting out of the rest of her hands. It's a pretty cool effect. I'm not sure what the spell is that allows that to happen, but it's pretty neat. The Oracle was Robert Shaw. Yeah, how about that, huh? That's pretty neat that this cast includes all sorts of weird little side note things for us geeks. Robert Shaw, of course, the Captain Quint from Jaws, and in any number of other excellent movies. I don't know if anybody realizes it, but the mayor of Amityville from Jaws opened the beaches here in Lake Geneva a couple of weeks ago. Said they were safe. Things don't seem to be working out that way because a number of restaurants have had to reclose because of cases of coronavirus, or rather cases of COVID-19, actually, is what they're saying. So we wish everybody who's contracting that good luck, and hope they are not damaged permanently by any of that. Just having a quick look on IMDb here because there's also a Martin Shaw that is in the cast. But I don't believe he's British born. No, doesn't appear to be any relation. So there you go. Anywho, Kali now gets in a fight with Sinbad and his men. They tip it off of a thing and it smashes and reveals the last piece of the tablet, which is snatched up by Cora, who then points out to the locals that their living god was just destroyed by Sinbad, so take him captive, which they do, along with all of Sinbad's party. Cora then gets all pieces of the tablet and reveals, hey, by the way, this leads to the Fountain of Destiny, which is not far from here, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to get eternal youth, and I'm going to get more power than you can ever imagine. And he ticks off the things that visions of the future. He ticks off the things that the Fountain of Destiny will give to whoever brings the pieces of the tablet there. And so, off he goes. But even as he leaves, Sinbad and his company try to effect an escape. It all starts. They have Sinbad captured, and then they spot the eye on the hand of Margiana. And it is exclaimed by the Vizier, who seems to know a lot of stuff exposition-wise for us, that they believe that she is somehow connected to their one-eyed god. So this is when it's revealed here that there's actually a second god involved for this group of locals. And kind of bizarre that they throw that in there, but it leads somewhere for us. Now they want to sacrifice her. There's a pit. There's an elevator on which they drop down the sacrifices. The Vizier, however, uncovers his burn victim face and scares all the locals long enough as a distraction for them to take advantage of this elevator and all get on board and drop down into a lower level. They do, even as the locals are quelled for a moment. So hop, hop, hop. Sinbad and a buddy of his use the rope after most of them are down on the elevator, and also they hold a sword to the throat of the apparent leader of the it wasn't a mustache earlier, it's teeth and fangs. So holds a sword to the rope or the throat of the leader so they can effect an escape. The locals are nonplussed, but they throw some spears, which are ineffective because the group manages to go out a secret tunnel. You gotta love the sets in this. There's a combination of cavern walls and carved, worked areas around entryways with archways and that sort of thing. It's all very neat. You can lift all sorts of stuff out of this for gaming. Meanwhile, on his last leg, Cora manages to find the Well of Destiny. He gets there, and he does manage to slip one of the pieces into the well, and fortunately, it's the one that restores his youth. And this is about the time that Sinbad and company catch back up to him. Unfortunately, from a side tunnel comes the one-eyed god, which is a huge Cyclops Centaur combination creature monster, and it's swinging a big old club. It gets into a fight with Sinbad and company, but out of nowhere comes a griffin. So I don't know. Maybe I missed something and it was summoned or whatever, but it's there, and it gives us a big giant creature battle, which is cool. The centaur eventually takes him, and so then the Sinbad and company had to finish him off. So we've got all of that combat going on, and then our buddy Korra manages to turn himself invisible, and this is apparently the all-powerful is being able to become invisible. It's interpreted that way, apparently. Well, the sword's still visible, so there's a what appears to be a dancing sword fight, or a fight with an invisible guy. Eventually, he manages to defeat him, and then the Fountain of Destiny reveals that someday Sinbad will be a prince and all rich and powerful. Meanwhile, a crown comes up out of the Fountain of Destiny, which Sinbad places on the head of the vizier, which transforms him and fixes his face and makes him all good again. And hooray, hurrah, that's where we are. So, there we go. I know we went through this one a lot faster than we went through the other ones, and it was even more images, but it's a lot more straightforward than Jason, for instance. It really is a pretty good story. There's a couple of weird turns there, the double god thing, the griffin out of nowhere seemingly, a couple of other odd little things. But all in all, I think the story that comes out of, and here's a DM tip again, the story that comes out of it in the end benefits from a very good setup, right? So we get a lot of information way up front. We really don't find out that the Fountain of Destiny exists until pretty far in, which is also good too, because if we know right from the start that that's what we're going for, it feels less mysterious along the way. So it helps that they're going to a sort of an intermediate spot to get more information, to find out what they're really seeking. They know they're seeking something. They don't know what it is yet. So that helps. The multiple puzzle pieces, not all of which are revealed, is a good thing. The villain that has spies, magical spies that can watch you. The fact that the villain is vulnerable to his own magic, and so is not all powerful, is also a good thing. These are all things that should transfer really well to RPGs. What else? Obviously, there's some sensibility issues with the portrayal of some of the island materials in the peoples and the decor, but for the most part, we've got pretty generic but very epic looking sets. There's a lot more interaction amongst the characters from top to bottom on the ship and stuff. And don't forget, in our previous Sinbad movie, he had to fill out a crew on his ship. He had to get a bunch of had to get a bunch of prisoners and say, hey, you can serve out your sentence or you can become part of my crew. And they mutiny a couple of different times. And that's all well and good for creating conflict, and it creates internal conflict. But at the same time, it doesn't allow for a lot of character development amongst those that are part of the crew, because most of them need to be kept as never name a pet you find that you might have to give back to the original owner, right? This is the same theory, right? We don't want to name the prisoner crewmen because later in the movie you're going to have to slay some of them, and you don't want to humanize them if you're going to if you're going to be slaying them later as part of this story, they need to remain semi-anonymous so that when they perform evil acts, we're not conflicted about whether or not they need to be fought. Um, it's a story trope. It's one that's worth keeping in mind in various situations. Um, but we won't go into that anymore than we need to at this point. This is a Harryhausen retrospective DM review of the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. I think we've covered a lot of good things here. We've got a lot of good settings, good characters, good mix of characters. We've got a lot of neat spell casting in this one and items of note. And I think that pretty much covers everything that's in here, right? So I want to thank everybody. Don't forget, tomorrow is actually Harryhausen Day. That would have been his 100th birthday. He passed away in 2013, at the age of 92, 30 years after, a little over 30 years after Clash of the Titans, his final movie. But boy, his legacy just grows and grows as time goes on. Anybody who's a gamer is familiar with all of his creatures. Anybody who's not familiar with the sword-fighting skeletons or the Medusa really just hasn't been paying attention, right? So Thursday we took a DM review look at 20 Million Miles to Earth and Mysterious Island. On Friday, 1 million years BC in the Valley of Gwangi, the dinosaur movies. We got into the Swords and Sandals, started in on the Sword and Sandal movies yesterday with Voyage of Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts this morning. We just looked at Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Later today, we'll check out Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, which has other great monsters in it. And tomorrow, back into the Greek legendary myths with Clash of the Titans. Once again, thank you so much if you're following the channel. LexFire22 in particular chiming in on the stream chat. Well, we got a new week starting here, so we'll get you in on the drawing for this week. And you know what? Well, you're here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you didn't make it around last week at all. I don't have you on for week 13. So you've been missing in action for a little while, huh? What's going on with that? Did I just miss putting you in? Nope. Father's Day and all that? Gotcha. Yeah, Sunday's your day, right? The one day that you have a chance that you can check out the show. Well, don't forget, later today, 5:30, we'll be doing that Sinbad in the Eye of the Tiger. So if you're free and you want to check that out, if not, of course, there's always YouTube, right? So if you are checking these out on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up there. Maybe make a comment. And if you subscribe to the channel over there, you'll also get a little notification anytime a new video is uploaded. But of course, the OK Grognard Show happens every day. This is actually episode 106, 107. What is it? It's getting up there. So do please check us out on YouTube. And if you do, thank you very much. Everybody, have a great afternoon, and we will catch you later on. Bye-bye.